I spent a summer at this program called Princeton in Beijing, which is a really intense summer program where they essentially put you in a classroom in Beijing with only other American college students, but the catch is that you're forced to speak Chinese. And if you speak any English in the entire time of the program, including with the other American college students, you're kicked out of the program. And so that when I did that, and I went there and I started to realize, like, whoa, okay, so this is how you learn a language.
What's happening, people? Welcome back to a podcast that doesn't have a name because we're too lazy to give it a name. We just bring on really cool people, and I'm sure most of you guys know exactly who is sitting in front of your faces on your screens today. We've got Arieh, or Xiaoma, here in-house. So, Arieh, what's up, man?
Hey, Will, how are you doing?
Doing good. Life is good. We got plenty to talk about, and kind of want to give a kickoff to who you are for the small amount of people that don't know you. Who are you? What are you about?
Yeah, I mean, so I am a YouTuber, I guess you would call me. Although these days, you know, I post content on a bunch of different platforms. I'm a video creator, really, and you know, I make videos speaking a bunch of different languages. And the way probably most people have seen me is, you know, on the internet, surprising people by speaking Chinese or Yoruba, or, you know, even getting some kind of massages. I do all kinds of things with my channel, but those are the things that people know me better for.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, yeah, I'd run across you with Chinese, but obviously, all of a sudden you're popping up in the Amazon. Then, you know, my dad's from Lagos, which I know you have a video. Were you in Nigeria? Have you been to Nigeria?
No, I've never been to Nigeria. A lot of people think that I go all over the world to make videos, which is kind of true, but you know, the reality is most of them, you know, at least in the past, I make in New York. So yeah, there's just like you know, there's this big Nigerian populations here, a lot of Ghanaians, a lot of Chinese people, just from all over the world, right? So it makes it really nice to do what I do.
Totally, yeah. I mean, obviously, we just missed each other when I was in New York, and we'll definitely do something when I'm back there. I'm always running around there. It's crazy how multicultural that place is. I mean, U.S. is a multicultural place, but New York seems like the peak of all that. I mean, maybe London.
Yeah,
I don't know where else.
Which is why I guess I think people don't realize, like, when I'm going into a store full of Nigerians and start speaking Yoruba, they're like, "Oh, you must be in Nigeria." No, I'm actually just in New York City.
Yeah. So a lot of people that are here, and this is something that we haven't done. You know, I've had only a couple others. I mean, obviously, I've had Steve Kaufman on to talk, and he's getting ready to come back on again to talk about language learning. And a lot of the guys, actually, I don't even know this about you. What language did you feel comfortable in? I mean, because, you know, a guy like you that's going to have a lot of exposure to tons of different languages, you can get by probably in some languages that you're not even really studying because there's some combination, like Portuguese. I don't speak Portuguese, but if you put the text there, if I have context, I can pretty much understand what's going on, right? But I would never say I speak Portuguese. I wouldn't say I speak Turkish, things like that. But what about you?
Yeah, so I get this question all the time. You know, how many languages do you speak? I don't actually speak that many. Like, I speak maybe, well, definitely 3 fluently, and then maybe 3.5, you know?
Yeah.
But sometimes just for fun, I'll say, like, the answer you want is 50. And I have, in fact, studied 50 languages and learned to have a conversation in 50 some odd languages. But I think to say that I speak 50 languages is definitely disingenuous because there's no by any definition of the word speak, I don't actually. Well, actually, no. By some definitions of the word speak, I do speak 50 languages. But I think by most people's definition of speak, I do not speak 50 languages. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I wish I did.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
No, I mean but the fact that you have exposure in that, because I'm not there too. I've kept my kind of, you know, some of it's been useful. Like you move to Croatia, they don't speak a whole lot of English there 10, 15 years ago. You got to learn this language, right? And then
you lived in Croatia. You were like a soccer player or something, right?
Yeah, so I still play, funny enough, and that's the funny thing about this. Like, you're trying to describe yourself, like, I'm a video creator. It's like, you're a business guy, you're an entrepreneur.
Hobby. You're like
yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So
But
it's like this other
yeah,
thing, but when you get a little bit of success and stuff, some people they discover you right through your
right.
Chinese videos or through this stuff, and they think you're only this.
Do you know who you remind me of a
So
little bit? Is you know that guy Gabe, Fluent Forever guy, Gabe, what's his name? Gabe,
no.
Gabe something. He was an opera singer. He was a professional
Okay.
opera singer for a while, but he then, as a result of his opera training and going to different places, he got very interested in learning languages, and he learned, many, mostly European languages to a high degree of fluency. And then came out with this book, Fluent Forever, that got very popular, and so his career kind of transitioned from being an opera singer to being basically a professional polyglot. And so
Okay.
now
Where's he
he
from?
now he runs Fluent Forever app. I think he's American. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Let me see. What's his name?
That's
Gabriel
interesting.
Gabriel Weiner. He had a big Kickstarter, so he
Uh huh.
yeah, I think he's American.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's cool.
yeah,
I'll reach out to those guys. Those guys are always, interesting. I find it interesting. I mean, people like you, him, and funny enough, here's something that I haven't. I talked about this. I think it was off camera to Steve. So obviously, I'd been a what do you call that? Those guys that like that watch from the outside of the polyglot community and the language world. I was in the soccer world, the football world, and I'm watching all these the language videos and being like, man, I should probably start this stuff, And I would use languages in our YouTube videos here and there,
hmm
And so a few years ago, probably like 6 or 7, Moses,
yeah,
I started to write Moses, and so we were writing back and forth, and I was thinking that would be the start because I come to the U.S. twice a year, and I thought that would be the start, and so he was in where Ohio or Indiana or Cleveland or I'm not sure where is
Ohio. I think
somewhere in the Midwest,
well, yeah,
Ohio.
I don't know.
And unfortunately, everybody knows kind of what happened. For the people that don't, he was a famous polyglot who unfortunately passed away, and it just kind of shook me, just
Right.
everything. And I mean, I don't want to take us down. I don't know. I know there's some controversy behind that. I don't want to get into. But I was just thinking this because I put it off. We put it off. We kept saying, "Yeah, cool, cool." When you come back, all right, this time, all right, this time, and then unfortunately,
I had reached out to him before he passed, and we never had any like concrete arrangements to meet up, but
hmm.
uh, I mean,
It's just one of those sad things. But I just sometimes people will say they'll say this to me, and I don't know if it's just because like okay, I mean he does similar. We do similar things in some sense. He was all over the Asian languages.
yeah,
I haven't gotten my start. We're about to get to right there. I'm about to ask you some about that, but so they'll be like, "Oh, you remind me a bit of him," and I don't know that we, apart from the language thing that we had, and like he's like 6'6" or 6'4" or 6'5", and he's into
yeah,
comics and Asian languages, and I'm not, stuff like that. But in any case, so speaking of my languages, so I float around 9 is where I would say I'm comfortable,
hmm
and yeah, for sure, like you, I could say I speak a bunch of others, but it doesn't make any sense. I don't. That's where I am. But Asian languages are going to be that's going to be one of my step offs, and Yoruba is also going to be one because I didn't learn it when I was younger. My dad is from Lagos, and so in that sense, let's get straight into how you learn and when you do. And you said you're comfortable in 3. What are those 3? And or first, what are those 3? And then I'll
yeah.
ask my follow up.
English, Mandarin, and Spanish.
English, Mandarin, and Spanish.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. So then I'm going to guess that you didn't have a method when you first started this. I'm going to guess that you were helter skelter, or did you?
I I didn't start learning any languages until I turned 18. Like I grew up speaking only English. My parents grew up in America, so they only speak English, and uh, yeah, I started learning Chinese in high school, the summer after graduating high school, and I really liked it. And so then I took a year in college, and at this point I didn't really know anything about language learning. I just go to the classes, and so but I really liked it. And then I had the opportunity to actually go to China. I got a scholarship to go to China and learn Chinese, and then prior to actually that year, I spent a summer at this program called Princeton in Beijing, which is a really intense summer program where they essentially put you in a classroom in Beijing with only other American college students, but the catch is that you're forced to speak Chinese. And if you speak any English in the entire time of the program, including with the other American college students, you're kicked out of the program. And
Wow.
so that when I did that, and I went there and I started to realize like, whoa, okay, so this is how you learn a language. Just the idea of like total immersion and actually trying to speak it. And I just love the heck out of that summer. And so then I went on for the subsequent year in China, and I tried to do something similar. I tried to only surround myself with Chinese people, and talk as much Chinese as possible. And I would go to classes
Mm.
in Chinese, and so that definitely gave me a lot of inspiration. And then on top of that, I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy by the name of Katsumoto who ran a website called, still runs it, I guess, alljapaneseallthetime.com,
No,
which
no, no.
that was really really super influential, to me, because he basically here was a guy who grew up in Utah speaking only uh, English, or well, so his parents are from Kenya, so I don't know if he spoke any
Mm.
any
Sure,
any
sure.
languages, but he grew up in Utah, and speaking mostly English, to my understanding, and then learned Japanese
Sure.
in college to fluency by himself in his like parents' basement, to the extent that he was able to, within 18 months of self studying Japanese, was able to move to Japan, get a high paying job as a software engineer, all in Japanese. And like he describes this method on his blog, and it was so inspirational to me at that age, that I and that plus the Princeton and Beijing experience definitely gave me, kind of formed
Right.
the core of you know
Yeah.
what would inspire me to learn languages, or my language learning methods. Um, so yeah, but I didn't
So,
actually study any
yeah.
languages after that. Like I subsequent to that, I got a job in finance, and I worked in software for a little bit for like 6 years, just making videos on the side. But I didn't actually study any other languages. In fact,
Okay.
even Chinese, I didn't really study that much during that time. Um, but I only started learning these other languages, you know, really around the pandemic time, like 2020.
Sure. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, like a lot of people probably. I
yeah,
mean, that's really
exactly.
interesting.
Yeah,
I find that I find it interesting. I mean, people have all these. I mean, there's so many different methods. There's so many different ways, and the people that see some of the stuff that we do, I know, are always interested in like, all right, how, what? Because there's so much just lumped out there, and because the traditional method doesn't have the results. It just doesn't have the. Everyone's taken
yeah,
4 or 6 years of Spanish,
yeah, for sure.
and no one speaks it. And
Totally.
so like we just have to look at it as something as like, is it producing the results that we all want or not? Because I think all of these people who studied it's not that they don't want to speak Spanish. They feel, some of them also, that they don't have the capacity. And that's probably the biggest thing that's driving me is like, dude, if your teacher, if their record is one or less than 1% of people coming out speaking it, it's probably not you.
Yeah,
There's something wrong with the method, and
totally.
we need to have something, or there needs to be a revolution in the way. And so, from things like comprehensible input to reading to immersion to all these things that are completely ignored. There was none
Yeah,
of that. There was
definitely.
none of that.
No, it's funny. Like a lot of times, look at like, oh wow, you're such a language learning genius. I could never do that. But like the reality is, in high school, like I was terrible at learning languages. Like I sat for years in Latin and ancient Greek and then Hebrew and just blah 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 blah, just like over and over again. Every year it'd be the same material, and I would just forget it, and then I would have to go back and review it, and the test would come around, and I would just have to review everything again. Pass the test, then completely forget it. Then every single homework assignment, I'd be looking up every other word. It just like
Yeah.
it was terrible. I was like, is
Yeah.
something wrong with my brain? Like, how can I have been sitting in this class for so many years and know not know how to read a single sentence in this language or speak a single sentence?
Exactly. That's it. That's it. And so, I mean, it's partially, not even partially. I said it's more than partially our mission on Goluremi language is to kind of not, I wouldn't say expose that because that word has kind of become this, but people should be aware that there's not that there isn't that, and it's starting to change for sure, but still in the traditional, just like you said, everyone walks up to me, wow, 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 and I was lucky. I was one of the lucky ones. I had an interest in Spanish. I had 3 amazing Spanish teachers, and that helped me get to a level of conversational fluency for sure at a very young age, and that was massive. But things really changed for me when I moved to Europe, and the ability and ease with which you can move around. And so, I mean, with that, just to give one thing back, because I know everybody is gonna have heard all the stuff you said. I love to chunk it down. If you could give us some of the stuff that someone should avoid. I mean, if someone actually, let's make this more personal. I'm gonna learn Chinese eventually. Like I'm going to learn Chinese. Let's start from there. What do I avoid? What should I start? Give me day 1. Give me month 1. Give me an idea.
Well, it depends. It depends on what you want to learn from Chinese. Like, do you want to learn to speak Chinese, or do you want to learn
speak
to write
Chinese?
Chinese? Because they're very different things.
Eventually.
Right.
Eventually.
So speaking Chinese, honestly, I would say avoid at the beginning, and this is going to be controversial, but just like avoid characters, avoid that whole rabbit hole, avoid like handwriting exercises, and like if you tell this to any Chinese person or any Chinese teacher, they're going to say that's so dumb. Why would you say that? That's like
sacrilegious.
completely wrong. You need to start with like, this is the sun character, and this is moon, and it's moon because 5,000 years ago it was the. But like that's interesting, and it's it's definitely like a fascinating piece of history, but it's not going to help someone learn to speak Chinese. And in fact, it's also not how Chinese people themselves learn their own language, because really like that's the way that a lot of Chinese teachers think, because that's how in Chinese school, when you go to school in China, like you start out with the sun and the moon and like Tang Dynasty poetry. But I don't think that's an appropriate way to teach foreigners to speak Chinese, because the reality is when most Chinese school children enter that Chinese elementary school for the first time, they already can speak fluent Mandarin and some other dialects of Chinese as well, probably. Right? They're like speaking fluent Mandarin and Cantonese, and then now we can learn about the Tang Dynasty poetry and the sun and the moon and all that kind of stuff, right? But I think prior to that, it's like when you're if you speak nothing of Chinese, you don't even know how to say ni hao. Like it's not appropriate, I think, to start with characters. It just is going to slow you down and also just way too confusing. So yeah, I would say just start with trying to speak to people if you can. Well, it also really depends on like what's your like money and time availability, because depending on those, it's very different. Like you could start with Duolingo, and that's fine, I guess. But
it gets you exposure, right?
Right. It'll get you at least something. But yes, is it better to start with like Princeton and Beijing and it's a summer in China speaking only China? Of course, that's the best way to start. I mean, but that's not realistic for many people.
No, totally. And that's a funny thing, because I mean, the way you approach that, it's so true. Based on your money and your time, how much can you do? And that's how I learned Italian. I've only spent 7 days, if I'm calculating this right, in Italy. And my Italian is great. I understand everything. I have tons of, and I've talked about this before, but I have a bunch of cultural blocks, right? I can't speak to even though I'm consuming their movies, their TV, their all that stuff. I'm missing out on stuff, and I was just in Milan and talking to people about stuff that's going on within Italy and all that stuff. You miss that. But the stuff that I started, obviously Spanish and Italian are very closely linked, and being able to listen to things that are broken down at such a simple level and really get that comprehension at the beginning is so crucial, I think, for me at least, especially telling this to other people, because they, like you and like me, have this relationship with learning where you go and you have to look up every other word and you don't understand and it's too big, and the moon, the sun, this, that, and they're teaching you things that are too far beyond what you need to go. And if you go look at what we do to our children, we sit there you might have told a kid that this is the table. This is a table. It's on top of the table 1,000 times before he even utters a single word.
Yeah.
It might be 2 years, before someone says anything. And so replicating that, and we as adults, and this is just my theory, which is also controversial. I think with the correct method, I think an adult in an immersive setting could learn faster
Oh
because
yeah,
they have an
100% agree with that. I think adults are
right.
way better language learning than kids. Like I see with my
Yeah.
kid, right? He's been in an English and Chinese immersion environment 24/7
Right.
for the past like year and a half, and
Yeah.
still can only say a few phrases. He
Exactly.
understands a lot. His comprehension is actually quite good, in both
Sure.
English and Chinese. But he can't, he can't speak really, right? But if you
Exactly.
were to put an adult in the same environment, like I'd be speaking fluent
Less
Chinese
than
and English,
absolutely, absolutely.
like at
It
least
happens
B1,
even
I would say.
before that. Exactly.
For a
That's
year
the
and
point
a
that I'm saying.
half, like that's a huge amount of time.
A year and a half, total immersion. You don't know anything
Yeah.
either. Like, wow, because adults have association. I can take that.
Well,
It's just
that's another thing. I think that a lot of people have this idea that we should learn languages like kids, as kids
mhm,
do, but I think that's
sure.
actually a mistake. And I've had
Hmm.
language teachers approach me with it. Like I remember one. I won't say the language, but I remember one
Sure.
lesson I had with a tutor where he just kind of went in and like didn't speak any English, just completely started from zero with the native language, and like
Okay.
did that kind of association, saying like in the language like this is a thing, and I
Uh-huh.
didn't understand anything.
Right.
Very unproductive hour went by,
Yeah.
and I learned like a couple of things, but
Right. Right.
that's how children learn, and that's why it takes them so long. But if you're an adult and you could just say like hard drive is a YG denture or something like that,
Uh-huh.
like
Right.
then you're like, oh, okay, now I know how to say hard drive, right? It's way easier than as a kid to have to do that association type stuff.
Exactly, because their association is double linked. And what I mean by that is
Yeah.
that this little kid doesn't even know what a hard drive is. He doesn't know what a table is. We have
Right.
to explain the concept of
Yeah.
table to the kid first. This is, you put this on there. So they're learning double the things. You guys already know what it is. There's not many things in other cultures that they don't have. And so, I agree. I've definitely had those teachers that they want to just like, they'll say it again and again to like, and we're wasting 10 minutes
Yeah,
going,
they waste
uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. And I'm like, no,
Just
like,
right, just tell me the English.
tell me that one, and I'll fill in the gaps for the others. It's a crucial part of it, and so there is a method and there is a thing within that. But yeah, so anyway, that's pretty good. I mean, it gives people an idea of how. And I would say though, I'm curious, where are you headed now? Like, what's the and I don't want to obviously say where you were before. I don't know if that video is out or if you can talk about
Which
one of your last trips. This
Oh,
one where we missed each other in New York. If you don't want to
no,
talk about it.
I can talk about it. Yeah, no, I recently went to the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California. I didn't actually go to the base itself, but we went to a different base because for national security reasons they wouldn't let us take cameras in there.
Makes sense.
So but we did go to a nearby base and got to actually visit a real Defense Language Institute classroom, which was super cool. And I had always wanted to visit that place, but fortunately the Navy hooked us up with the classroom and everything, and it was great.
How was it? Was it? I mean, obviously,
really cool. So
you don't have to give us everything, but like,
they're fascinating. Like I don't know how much you've probably heard something about the DLI.
a little, but
What a lot of people have heard about the DLI is that like the category language, like category 1 language, category 2 language, category 3 language, category 4, like where it takes this many weeks of classroom study to learn language.
Right.
So that was invented by the DLI. Like the DLI has a lot of, for those of you who don't know, the DLI is it's the military's language training institute, where U.S. military personnel and very occasionally civilians will, but you have to be employed by the federal government, will go to this school to learn languages. And it's in California, and you go there and you spend 10 hours a day, every day, including weekends, slightly less time on weekends, but for months at a time, learning languages. And so they do studies at DLI to find out how long it takes people to learn Chinese or Spanish or Farsi, Arabic, Russian.
Sure.
And so the DLI has broken these languages up into categories. And so languages like relatively close to English, like Spanish. Or,
Yeah,
I mean,
Danish, Swedish.
Spanish is actually not that close. Like Spanish to me is like I would say honestly a medium difficulty language, like easy to medium. Like if you want a really
Uh-huh.
easy language for English speakers, for native English speakers, like yeah, like Dutch or like Norwegian. It's like
Right.
outrageous. You know, Jamaican patois, right? It's another great one.
Yeah.
These are very easy languages, and but so the DLI will classify these languages in like category 1 language. This will take you, I don't know, this is the exact 12 weeks of time, and then category 2 language is like, like German or like something a little harder, and that'll take you 36 weeks, and then like a category 3 language, like maybe Hindi or Hebrew or something, will take you this many weeks, and then category 4 is, includes like Mandarin, Japanese, and
Russian,
Arabic.
maybe.
And then they've actually recently introduced like a category 4 with an asterisk, like almost like a category 5, specifically for Korean, because it's I think, if I
Really?
recall correctly, yeah, because Korean is really really hard. So
Okay.
yeah, so it just they do this. So but anyway, at DLI they learn these languages, and so I was having conversations in Chinese with people who've only spent 8 months learning Chinese, but they were
Mhm.
like really hardcore 8 months,
Wow.
just like
Yeah.
going like super super hardcore learning Chinese. And these also, by the way, these were not necessarily people with who you would call like people particularly interested in
Talented.
languages, or like,
Right.
yeah, I don't even want to use the word talented, because
Sure.
you have to pass like a certain aptitude test in order to even be able
Okay.
to allow, to take Chinese. But these are not people who are even interested in learning languages necessarily. They're just like Navy people or Army soldiers who, like, for whatever particular assignment, have to learn Chinese. And so, they're like the Navy, Army, military, whatever. It's like, go here and learn Chinese and then come back. And so this school is able to consistently produce graduates who speak Chinese at a fluent level after only a year of study,
Yeah.
and like at a fairly high level as well. And it's pretty impressive what they can do. And
That's
they're able to do
incredible.
it because of like, they're just like, we're studying this language for 10 hours a day. Like,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You have
obviously not
no
everybody
choice. This is what we're doing.
has the ability to do that, but they're also not in the classroom like passively absorbing the material either.
Uh-huh.
They're speaking. The teachers are constantly going over with them and practicing. So
Yeah. It's some form of total immersion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just and probably specific, which is one of those cool things. I mean, I talked to obviously Andrew Bustamante, who so somewhat related there in the CIA, and we have a visitor.
Yeah, we'll have a visitor. All right.
Hey.
Hi. Okay.
Yeah,
We'll see,
what's up?
We'll see how long we can go before he starts crying, but for now we're.
Okay. Oh, that's great. What's up, man? How you doing?
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Hello.
Hi.
All right.
So,
Mhm.
oh, there we go. We got a little high in there. So, yeah, I was saying, yeah, Andrew Bustamante just had this high frequency words, thing that they were talking about, that's what they do, and that's the whole idea. And I got to imagine, I wonder, because the people that are going there for the Navy, for all this stuff, like, they've got to be thinking, we're not going to spend any time talking about pizza, okay, because I don't want you learning how to arm a pizza. I imagine they also are very particular, I mean, because about, hey, this is what you're going to learn, this is where you're going to be, we've got to start here, and then running through that. And I feel like the same thing can be done with a civilian, right? Or someone who wants to just learn a language, and where are you going to be speaking this at?
Yeah. Well, that's what I do. That's like a
Okay.
huge part of my method, which is, knowing exactly, like, because there's no, like, I'll spend like 2 or 3 weeks learning a language, in many cases, like very difficult languages, and then I have to go and speak to native speakers, and have like plausible conversations with them. And the only way to do that is by knowing in advance what I'm going to need to be able to speak. So it has to be like, I have to be able to learn, like, I'm not spending time learning like colors and
Yeah, or maybe the dual. I don't want to knock them too much
the
because I have in the
weather.
past.
Yeah,
The Duolingo
but
sentence.
That's kind of a problem with like the one size fits all language courses, because you don't really know, like, you don't really know what the person necessarily wants to be. And but like to be fair, a lot of times people learning languages themselves don't necessarily know why they're learning the language.
That's true.
They don't have great reason.
That's true.
But
Yeah, I had no reason to learn Italian as we go back in
I
Germany.
didn't have any reason to
but,
learn Chinese, to be perfectly honest. Like,
See, yeah, look at the journey that it takes you on.
It was like cool, and I liked it.
Right,
You know?
right, yeah. And so, I mean, in my next languages and everything that I expect and hope to do, I obviously have this approach in which I'll hopefully have a goal for it, right? In Yoruba, obviously, I'm surrounded by it, and Chinese and eventually Arabic, and I have this hope and desire to get to these languages that will, do something for me. My hope is I feel like a global citizen. I don't know how you feel and how this has changed you, but it probably has quite a bit, because even being in New York and being able to connect with cultures that 2 seconds ago, 2 or 3 weeks go by, and all of a sudden you can say stuff in there, and they're going to look at you differently, and you are different to them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely, it definitely changes how you feel about certain cultures. Like,
right,
not that you felt negatively about a certain culture before learning their language, but then once you do it, it gives you this connection in like I mean, I always use the example of Navajo. Like I didn't really I wasn't even aware. Like, I obviously was aware that there were Navajo people in America, but I guess I wasn't aware that, like, it just wasn't very top of mind for me.
for sure.
Once you spend a few weeks learning Navajo, and then make a bunch of Navajo friends on Facebook, and then your feed is all this Navajo content. You're like, oh yeah, like there's a whole
Humanizes
bunch
them.
of like Native Americans in this country whose land was dispossessed, like,
Right.
but they still preserve their culture and their language and their history and traditions, and like, you just
Yeah.
it just really makes you feel different about things.
Yeah, I mean, travel will do that. Learning a language will do that, and that's the whole point behind a lot of what we do. I mean, obviously, I enjoy it even intellectually, just to be able to read stuff and to be able to. So, I mean, some of my favorite series and stuff are not in English, and I would never have been exposed to them, and I can't picture my life without.
What's what's interesting for me is that I was just never interested in media from other languages, like from other cultures. Yeah, but I would always, like, even with Chinese, I the all Japanese all the time guy learned Japanese through manga and anime. But for me, it just like, I don't know, for whatever reason,
Not for you.
I always connected more with speaking and like with talking to people.
Yeah.
Than media. But
Okay. Well, listen, man. We'll close it off so you can go run around and be dad. Obviously, we'll link to everything here and to stuff and where you guys can check out more of Arieh's method, more of our method as well, and check out all the videos and check all that stuff. Is there anything specifically that you want to kick out to?
Yeah, I mean, check out my videos. I actually, one thing I'm very excited about is that we're working on an AI language tutor recently.
Awesome.
Calling it Teacher AI, and
Okay.
the idea is we'll be like a conversation partner and teacher available 24/7 in your pocket to be able to teach you a language.
Sure.
So you can check out. You can see it recently if you go to streetsmartlanguages.com, which is my language learning company /AI. You can sign up for a wait list, and we should be able to release something like pretty soon, I would think.
Okay.
So I'm very excited for this. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
something I'm
That's
thinking
awesome.
about.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, we'll put the links right down below. Everybody, Arieh, obviously, thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thank
we
you,
will
man.
do this, and when I'm in New York, we'll hook something up and run around the streets and and be crazy.